Alright everyone, Lego is back with a mini project. It's been a while because I started a new big project, and in the middle of procrastinating about that, I decided to make this. A small one-word project I've had in mind for a long time. I just decided it was time. What you're seeing me do right now is make the proto words. Very easy to do since there's only one word and I have a pretty clear direction in what I want to do. The line work here, nothing interesting to talk about. The most important thing for me in this project was to make everything sort of homogeneous in terms of density. So I'm trying to spread the lines around a bit while still maintaining some sort of pattern. So it's just not just random lines. The word here is, well, as you can tell from the title, and if you know where this is from in particular, especially before we get to the finale, then good on you. And yeah, it's not a pretty sight. But that aside, we are in the final stages of adding the letters, the lines for the letters now. Um, and there's not a lot to talk about word-wise, because really the meaning behind that particular term is really what's doing the heavy lifting here. I'm making it a little thicker to really have something to cut into. No pun intended. Pretty much pun intended, actually. But in order to honor the source material a little more, I also wanted to add some decors or something like that from the actual original instrument. So that's what you're seeing me do right now. 36 increments lined up or bordered by these small ceremonial indexes, shall we say. I don't really have a good word for it, but either way, what I'm trying to do right now is add those to the text. And I didn't really, in hindsight, I could have done this a lot better, but that ended up costing me about at least half an hour of twiddling to get it the way I wanted. But that's just what happens when you don't use the tools for a while. You forget how to do it best. So I did what I did in the moment, and it did end up working, but it wasn't the prettiest implementation I've ever done. And in hindsight, I could have probably done it better. Now, color work, no idea at the time, but the moment I started to include the small segments around the edges, I knew I had to do the color scheme you're seeing me right now. Some heavy golds and some silver to contrast. Simple scheme, really. There's not a lot to it, but again, I didn't really do my homework here. Or well, I did do my homework, but the thing is, when you split the paths and strokes as I do here, you end up with a lot of elements, and there's no good way of doing that as far as I know. So that's going to come back and bite me in the butt later when I actually try to separate the whole thing. There was a non-published project a few years back that had this same problem. Anyway, we'll get to that. But right now, I'm just adding a bit of a shadow, and I tried to the first time around, get around it without doing a clip group, because I know it's gonna mess with my splitting later. But alas, I couldn't get it to work, at least not smooth enough. So I ended up doing a clip group, what you're seeing me do right now. And again, I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet later and fix my mess once I get to the actual cutting. For now, this is what I do, and I anticipated this to be a very small, short, easy project. So that's why there's no layers, there's no management of different groups, there's no separation of different paths and effects and stuff. It's all just one big mess on top of each other. So it's up to me to sort of hold some semblance of order by just layering different stuff on the same layer. So no layers here. In hindsight, again, probably should have done that. I didn't anticipate it using that many effects in hindsight, but at the time, at least when I started, I was like, this is one word, quick color, quick cut, and get out there. Alas, it didn't happen. But here we are with a pretty good setup so far. And now it is time to do the all-important cutting. And that requires some some legwork here in order to figure out the best way of going about that, because already I started to mess about with the different clip groups and the layering of those. So already I've messed some stuff up, and there is no going back from that. It's just a matter of separation and then somehow getting things back in order while just laying them on top of each other within the same layer. Um, I'm not really sure how I can explain it, but somehow in the midst of me fiddling around with this, trying to make it work without the clip group, I messed up something in the coloring. I looked at the backup at the top, and I looked at the one at the bottom, and somehow I decided that the one on the top was brighter and more shiny. So I ended up using the backup instead, and the second one became the backup. I can't explain that. It just seemed brighter and more, well, more shiny. Despite the fact that I could have sworn that both of them had the same layer order. So I don't know. But anyway, now it's time to do the actual separation. And in theory, this is easy. Just cut the elements. But there's no command that can cut more than one item at a time. So either I have to unionize the whole thing and lose my colors, or I have to colorize the things, turn everything into a path, including the strokes, and then cut every single item individually. Large scale, this is a bad idea. Small scale, still a bad idea because I messed up some stuff, but it was the best. It's the best method I know of. It's pretty much the only method I know of, actually, apart from trying to somehow do a. Wait a moment. I guess you could technically do the same thing with two clip groups on identical. Huh. Okay, so I might have actually thought of a pretty clever idea. I'll have to table that for another day. And right now, I got this stuff cut, and I only made one mistake, and I'll have to fix that in a while. Digital cookies to you if you can figure it out before me. But now I am modeling up a basic knife, shall we say, a cutting blade, in the same manner that I made the arms for the alethiometer way back in the day. So this is sort of nice tie in there with that. Two halves of a identical gradient where one side is darker than the other. That is the name of the game here. Added in some elliptical strokes for effect, I suppose. And at this stage, I'm not really sure how I want them to stand out yet. But I really want them to be there. I don't want this to be a static image. I have no idea what the background is, but I settled on some white in the center as if something burst from the cutting itself, which is pretty appropriate actually. Tried to get some depth in this by adding a little bit of shadow work. Not a ton, because I don't really have the patience for making the three-dimensional. You can do some three-dimensional stuff by using some interpolation tools, and I didn't really have that in mind, because it wasn't supposed to be that big of a project. So even though I could have made some 3D effects with some interpolation tools, I just decided to slap a shadow on it and call it a day. Now, here is the mistake I mentioned. I did not, somehow I messed up the position of the small segments on the right side, and the best decision I could come to at the time was simply to move them manually, because I didn't have any reference to move it back in. So this was done manually. It's not mathematically perfect anymore, but I couldn't care less at this stage. So I just wanted to be fixed and done with. The last thing I did was add some distress, and I'm not sure yet if I wanted it all over the place or just on select items. I knew I wanted the knife free. Nothing on the knife. It had to stand out clear and simple and clean. But I wanted some on the destroyed halves here, and I ended up just applying it to those cut surfaces instead of the background because it was just a little bit much. At the last touch here, I added something bursting out from the cut object here, and I'm not gonna go into detail about what that is. If you know, you know, and otherwise, it'll have to remain a mystery. And at this stage, I am pretty happy. We have the cutting knife, we have the background, we have something bursting, something dynamic. It's not a static image per se. It's more like something that's happening at the moment, and I really like that. It is it's a very nice, clean representation of something that's not nice and clean, shall we say? And I'll leave it at that. Now, this took less than 2 hours. I'm pretty happy with it, and with this done, I will have to stop procrastinating and get back to my bigger project. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.